Okay, I want to make a quick video about arcade control panel layout design and something that I keep seeing, and I think that a lot of people are just getting it wrong and not really thinking things through. And so this might be something for you to think about. So if we look at this layout, for example, you see a lot of stuff like this when people build MAME cabinets where the coin and the start buttons are made symmetrical. And if you really think about it, like, it's incredibly stupid because, you basically want to put the buttons where you have easy access, right? And so in this case, like, how is player one supposed to press, the coin or start without basically either like crisscrossing their hands over to where the joystick is, or taking their hand off the joystick and then pressing one of the buttons? If you have any game where you actually have to press the start button while you're playing it, that's a fucking train wreck. And so I just want to point out the fact that symmetrical start and coin buttons actually make no sense. And just because some original arcade control panels were designed that way doesn't mean that you need to keep repeating the same mistake that they did. One of the nice things about making a new arcade cabinet is that you can actually make something more ergonomic and more practical and easier to use. A lot of old arcade cabinet design was actually incredibly fucking stupid. Nobody knew what they were doing. They were just throwing shit at the wall. There's no reason to strictly adhere to any of that stuff. I mean, here's another example of like some goofy ass, Star Wars theme control panel here. You see how they try? Well, I mean, it isn't completely symmetrical, but they more or less made the coin and the start button symmetrical. But that's fucking stupid because even though the buttons are pretty easily accessible for player 2, they're really not that accessible for player 1. Because for player 1, like I said, once again, they basically have to crisscross their hands to get to the coin button, or they have to take their hand off of the joystick to press the coin button. Like I said, it's fucking stupid. Look at this fucking disaster, X Arcade. So the player start, player one start button is easily accessible. That's not a problem. But what about player two? Again, you have to take your hand off the joystick to press it, or you have to, go over it, use your right hand to get around the joystick and then press it. It's completely fucking stupid. And so, just to illustrate, something that I think, like more or less makes sense. See, this I think is the kind of layout that you actually want. Where you don't want a symmetrical layout. You basically want to have the same buttons in the same place for both players, and then that way, you can press either one of those coin or start buttons, without taking your hand off of the joystick and without crisscrossing over, to reach over to access it. I mean, and it's pretty obvious stuff, right? I mean, it's just like, I have these hand things it's pretty obvious, right? See, so you have your hand there, and then, without actually crisscrossing, going over, I can just press, the coin and start buttons. So, I mean, that's basically what you want. I mean, and like I said, let me just illustrate this. I mean, if you think about how stupid it is. So, why would you want a symmetrical design for, your layout here? I mean, it's like, do you see anybody doing a design like this, where the player 2 has their joystick to the right of the buttons? No, you don't. Symmetrical designs are fucking stupid. You want everybody to have the same controls, the same buttons in the same places. So basically, stop putting the fucking coin and start buttons symmetrically on the goddamn control panel. It doesn't make sense. I mean, you can think of each one of these things as, a self-contained unit. These are all controls for one player. They should, and so all the controls for each player should be in the same place. The only time you want to have symmetrical controls is if, it's something like you have like a quit button or something like in the middle. And it makes sense for something like that to be, placed symmetrically, because then you have a control that doesn't just apply to one player. It's shared between multiple players. So you kind of want to put it in between them. That's when it makes sense to put stuff in the middle, to put stuff symmetrically, when there's shared controls. So once again, shared controls centrally, symmetrically, individual player controls asymmetrical. Everybody has the same shit in the same place. It's not fucking complicated. But like I said, people are going to keep making this dumb mistake. They're not even going to think about it. A lot of people don't even realize that there are certain games that use the start button for gameplay reasons. And so they just figure like, oh, well, it's the start button. Who cares? I can take I can take my hands off of the controls to press it. But that's actually, really stupid design. You want things easily accessible. You basically want your right hand to be able to easily access all the buttons, and you basically want your left hand to always be on the joystick. So that's just, something to think about when you're coming up with your button layout. Symmetrical is something that you really want to think about before you do your layout like that.